After a very long period of writer's block, I've decided to give in and follow the trend of the average Warhammer content channel. Space Marines are pretty cool. And with that statement, I have angered all the 3 diehard Eldar fans who exist on this planet. Yay. As a plastic crack connoisseur, I have to admit they are some of the best sculpts that exist on the miniatures market, plus they are always getting overpriced new shit that I absolutely fiend for, like a Logan resident does a crack needle. So today we're going to start at the very beginning. The chapter of all time. Jimmy Space himself. We start explaining the Marine sub-factions with the Ultramarines. And if you do enjoy this sort of content, please consider hitting that like button and interacting with the video in some way. Share it to your friends, share it to your mom, share it to your creepy neighbor. And if you really like this video, then please consider subscribing since it helps me pay the loan sharks who have taken my family hostage. Please, I beg of you. And with that out of the way, let's talk about the Smurfs. 10,000 years before the Horse Heresy, just a chill guy, hands in pockets, decided to steal power from the gods. He then used this power to create his sons and finally become the worst parent in human history. In total, there were 21 made. They were called the Primarchs. 2 went into the foster care system, never to return, and 1 was actually a twin, meaning that by the time Big Daddy Emperor started to give a fuck, only 18 Primarchs remained. Now, there is more to the story that is a little important, like how the Primarch's mother, Erda, tried to perform a postnatal abortion by thundercutting each Primarch except for Alpharius Omegon into the inky black of space. But that's getting into too much detail, and I don't have the budget to, slap a Subway Surface reel next to the screen, keep your attention, you poor Zoomers. So, as far as you need to know, this is the absolute and factual canon as told from the necrotic lips of the God Emperor himself. Your Honor, if I'm lying, why aren't my pants on fire? Then once the Emperor realized his kids were gone, he decided to go and conquer the galaxy, and get his Congolese child soldiers back. When the Emperor encountered Guilliman in Ultramar, he had made quite the empire for himself and given a giant golden man with oiled up abs had just told him that he was his pappy. Girly Girl decided to join the Emperor on Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. And as a gift, the Emperor gave Gorilla Man a legion of Space Marines derived of his own long and hard genetic information to aid him in conquering the galaxy, of course. During this time, the Ultramarines were the 2nd largest legion of all the 18 legions, and was the best organized out of all 3 legions. Because you see, each of the Emperor's special boys had a special gift because of that little, event, the Oopsies I Fooled God event that the Emperor did just a wee bit ago. Some of these gifts was the power to see the future, or literal immortality. Guilliman's special gift was crippling autism, and with his autistic superpowers, and some forbidden Dark Age sorcery, and Excel spreadsheet, it was able to run some of the most successful campaigns in the history of the Imperium. Then the Horse came, and it did a little bit of heresy. Uh-oh. Everyone is dead. Womp womp. And so after a little bit of mischief, perchance a little tomfoolery, blowing up Monarchia, the Wordbearers decided to try and defeat the Ultramarines. In response, Gorilla Man went apeshit. By the end of the heresy, he was one of the last Primarchs alive and was the only Primarch to not horribly suicide charge the Eye of Terror. In my opinion, that does make him a little bitch. However, it is understandable. Dad's dead, your brothers are either lobotomites or not interested in your specific hyperfixation, and now you're all by your lonesome with nobody to tell you that it's bedtime. Awesome. However, that then resulted into G Fuel getting stabbed by the
Penis snipper guy
and going into a vegetative state to fully transcend into Stephen Hawking. Now this is epic. The Ultramarines by now have been fractured from one of the biggest legions into multiple successor chapters, and for about 10,000 years, the Ultramarines and their successors kept the Imperium going. with the most successor chapters out of any other legion. They have the most widespread force out of all the Space Marines, and that is all according to the great and mighty Space Book. You may have heard of this so-called Codex Astartes from hit games of Warhammer 40,000. Fuck off. From the cringy Reddit memes in r/40k, or possibly passing in other YouTube channels. However, this book is not really the shadowy, hallowed text that people mistake it to be, though it is held in very high reverence for a reason. If you're talking about the Ultramarines, you better goddamn well know you're gonna at least mention once the Codex Astartes. This codex is pretty much God's greatest recipe to fuck everyone over. Think less Holy Bible and more Sid Meier Civilization 7 tutorial book. This lexicon of tomfuckery covers all the topics from supply lines to legion organization to battle tactics to squad formations. Goddamn, it teaches you how to wipe your ass. It's essentially the transcript of a TED talk given by a schizophrenic Vietnam War veteran, except more racist. Some chapters adhere closely to the codex and follow it with a near religious fervor, like the Red Scorpions. Other chapters bulk buy copies of the Codex Astartes to specifically wipe their ass with the pages they tear out after having shat all over the covers, such as the Black Templars. The Ultramarines are one such Codex adherent chapter that exists in the modern setting, and as per the Codex, they pertain to 10 major companies, each with their own specialization. Named Ultramarines characters include the Captain of the 4th Company, Urethra Ventura, Master of Trains, Cato Sicarius, Rat Bastard of the 2nd Company, Severus Sagraman, Captain of the 1st Company, Lieutenant Demetrian Titus of the 2nd Company, King Wizard Tigurius, the Bug Fetish Man, and lastly, Marnius Calgar, King of the Space Marines. The most recent addition to this all-star JoJo's cast is, of course, the Gorilla Gripper himself, Eldar Playboy Reboot Fisterman, with his of Dominion and the Emperor's mighty sword. Sorry, did I do an innuendo? My bad. My brain's just infected with all the gooner brain rot of Gilliman and Yvraine shipped together because some people have literally nothing better to do in life. Up until quite recently, I'm having a strong bonds named the James. Up until quite recently, the Ultramarines had fought off quite the variety of enemies ranging from High Fleet Behemoth to Abaddon him fucking self, but really, they had just simply kept the setting stable up until 9th edition, where our blue boys, along with a newly returned Lionel Johnson, aided in miserably fucking failing to stop the Arcs of Omen from being a thing. And now in the most recent setting, the Ultramarines are fighting the Tyranids again in the 4th Tyrannic War, whilst Gilliman copes with the inability to pick up with a pen. But let's talk rules. As a personal tidbit, I do unironically like the Ultramarines. Of course, it is common courtesy to shit-talk the Ultramarines due to the Matt Ward era of lore, where they were at one point compared to the Adeptus fucking Custodes and inferred to be better. I'm not joking, look it up. This mark of shame still lasts today as a dark time in the Ultramarines history. That aside, they are a unironically fantastic starter faction with a beautiful paint scheme and interesting characters. The rules for the named characters I feel are suitable for both melee and ranged play, but keep in mind King Marnius' fists do 3 damage per shot, strength 8, 6 attacks. It's fucking terrifying when you see him in a kill brick of 60 blade guards and an ancient, though of course they are the definition of jack of all trades. Their playstyle can change on a dime depending on your opponent, but ultimately stays relatively consistent on, capable of all but master of none. You facing some big scary guys? Bring Uriel Ventress and a couple of squads of Chainfist Terminators. Simple. Giant melee horde? Bring Gilliman with 20 assault intercessors. Possibly some Stern Guard if you're feeling like spicy shooting. All their characters cover a whole range of armies that you possibly could face, playstyles you could go up against, and altogether have some pretty good rules that can be vital in a pinch, though by not favoring any detachment, they also have the unwritten nerf of having no preferable detachment either. So if you do want to spec your ultis into a pure melee force, get fucked. Since you probably only have one character who can give melee buffs, and essentially you're just running a vanilla Marines list for melee, might as well paint them white to go the extra fucking mile. At the end of the day, they're the indecisive faction, and their dedicated rules, or rather dedicated units with their dedicated rules, reflect as much, with abilities and profiles that shoot in all directions a little bit rather than just honing down on a singular particular gimmick. But honestly, I like that a lot. And if you can't decide what to play for 40k, then Pick the Ultramarines, since they will crash course your brand new baby bottom all through every aspect of the game mediocrely, which is pretty nice. All things considered, they're a relatively smart choice to pick if you're going headfirst into the game, getting a combat patrol with a couple of specific units such as intercessors or the Infernus Marines. If you want to go thick, pick some Gravis boys, heavy intercessors or aggressors, but they swing either way. Bisexual, more like by yourself because you play Warhammer. But seriously, I fucking hate Cato Sicarius with a passion. There's no amount of redemption arc that can unscrew the continent-sized lore deck he's being fucked with. God damn you, Matt Ward.